Hello? I'm doing a tutorial here, I guess. I don't know, I'm just making stuff. So, I'm just gonna show off how to use the terrain tool in Unity. Now, my setup here is not the greatest because my screen is tiny, but I'm just gonna get into it. So, first of all, whenever using the terrain tool, you're gonna have to have a terrain. So, obviously, you're going to get your terrain, and here there will be two things automatically on, actually three. The transform, which you don't have to worry about, your terrain itself, so this is where all the settings will be, and then the terrain collider, which this is just basically like a rigid body. So I'm going to go to the terrain here so I can see it, and this is what it looks like. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna go into here. So you've got multiple things. You got raise, paint, all that stuff, set height. So I'm just gonna go through all the tools. So raise or lower terrain, it's pretty simple. If you left click on something, it raises the terrain. I'm gonna get a little closer so it's easier to see. Left click on something, raises the terrain. Shift left click, lowers the terrain. It's really that simple. And for all of these, you can adjust your brush size. Let's undo that. And your opacity. So you can make something very clear and something, well, it doesn't do anything. So the opacity is necessarily saying how much and how fast you're going to be editing something. So that's the raise or lower terrain. Now that one can be a little jittery and stuff. Paint holes, I think it's kind of obvious. It makes holes. It legitimately just cuts through the terrain, so you won't really be using this all too often when making stuff, but it's there if you want it. Paint texture, this is what you're going to really be using a lot, other than also the other tools, but this is going to be used a lot. So I, before making this, made two textures, a grass texture and a stone texture. What you can do with these, you press create layer, you choose, so the first one you choose will be what is automatically set as the default. So I'm doing the grass one because why not? And then I'm also adding the stone one. Now when adding these textures, as you saw, you just have to create layer, or you can press add layer if you've already made a layer before. When you come down here, there's obviously all the pre-established settings, so when you want to do a specific one, say grass or stone in my case, you click what you want to do, you set up your brush settings, and then you paint, like all the other tools. So come down here, we can see there's my wonderful slop together stone texture. Now the two tools I've showed you, the raising and lowering terrain and the paint ones, those will be used a lot, but I say paint will be used almost the most, and the other one that will also be used the most is set height, which we are about to get into. Set height. So this is really simple, really. You choose, well, there's world or local. I don't really know what local does, so just don't mess with it. But it's based off of world. I'm pretty sure local is based off a camera, just so you know. But world is what you're probably going to want to use. So you set your height. So in my case, let's just set it to 10. Whatever I go over now, and it's the same brush settings, we'll set its height to 10. Now this isn't just raising it, it's also lowering it. You can see here, you can lower your terrain down to whatever you want. And I believe this goes, I don't know how high it goes specifically, but I think it's just to like 100. Can I do 150? I can do 150. So that's neat. And also, just like all the other ones with the opacity, which it took me a while to figure this out, but it's actually really like how quickly you want to go. Like here, it's still going up to the 150, of course, so it gets to it pretty slowly, but here, it's fast. So set height tool will be used a lot. It's great for plateaus, making walls. If I put this down to like 10 and this to like 15, and I can make like a natural wall here. And the thing is with all this is that it's kind of hard to tell the scale in this view. So what I suggest is getting some sort of controller that you will probably already have. Now I just downloaded one online. It's free and I'll put it in the description. But it's him, and this guy, I need to find where they are. Up there. Move them. Set maximize on play. And I got a little guy here, and you can really get a sense of how big stuff is. I don't want him clipping inside that. And so here's my little guy, but you can kind of see how big it is. Now I haven't set actual good settings on this yet, but you know, mess around with that. Always have something that is nice. I just sped him up, and it's a lot better. But as you can see, now there's this weird like clipping thing, but that's with shadows. So I suggest like getting some ambient occlusion, which I'll probably cover in a different video on post-processing. But like you can see that this terrain tool, it's pretty powerful, but I'm still not done. So we go into terrain, back into the brushes. There's also smooth height. Now what smooth height does is it's pretty clear. So if I zoom in here so we can really get a grasp of this, you can kind of see how rigid it looks. It just doesn't look all too great. I'm also just gonna just for convenience so you can see it better, look at this. Woo. There we go. So if you look here, it kind of smooths it out between different planes, as you can see, which is really useful because a lot of stuff that's really kind of weird and rigid before this process, the process of smoothing is very important. Now, of course, some things you will want to look more rigid, like the stonework here looks great rigid, but man, this grass, it probably should look a little bit smoother. And it's just kind of generally like that. So that's smooth height. Of course, like the other same brush settings, it does not have like height things like the set height. And then stamp terrain. I've always thought this one was kind of weird. So you stamp what you want. So I'll set my stamp height to like 85, and it just does this. You stamp. So I've just got a circle brush here, but let's, add a star brush. Turn that down. You just add stamps to the land. You almost never use this, but I mean, if you just wanted to add like a pillar, I guess. Wait, I don't see much point to this, but it's there. You can use it. Yeah. I guess for progressive, but it just adds pillars. It's not that useful. So that was all the brushes. Now we move on to trees. Now the thing with trees is that you can paint out trees and models and stuff. Now of course you're gonna have to have a model. I don't have models on me right now, so I'll come back with just some basic like low poly models or something, and I'll show you how to use the tree tool. Okay, I'm back here and I got some models. So I just got some basic rocks and tree. So I'm going to show you how that's going to have to work. So first of all, why did my hierarchy do that? I don't know. I don't like this setup that much, but it is what it is. So back on terrain, we're at trees, and I don't have any trees, so we're going to have to add trees. So what you do is you press edit trees, add trees. So this is very similar to a brush process. it'll say please assign a tree and then bin factor. I don't know what that does to find out. And then you can do actually literally anything. You could do some computers. I can mass place computers, and it's all but you know, you set the amount you want here. So I generally do around 100, and that'll give it a good distance. And now the thing is, I don't actually have this computer model in my game right now, so let's actually put something I have. So to remove it, you just press remove. That's simple. So let's actually add something I do have, and let's do this tree. So add that, and you can see I can mass place these trees. Now it looks weird from a distance, but that's because I was like hovering over it. But you can mass place trees, so you can edit the amount you want, as I showed before. So let's just set that to 100, and that's not that great for some things. So I'm going back to that. Oh, mass place trees. Literally just mass place these trees. Oh, I feel stupid now. You can edit the tree density with this little thing here. So I don't know why it is doing that, but you can randomize the tree height, or you can set it specifically, obviously. And why? Okay, I'm having problems. It won't place down the trees for some reason, but you saw it happen before. It's just like a brush. And you can see I'm just putting more trees here. So that's the tree tool. And so let's move on. Paint details. So you can click to paint details, hold shift to erase details. So just add my stone here. And I believe this is making like a custom brush. I haven't used this before, so I'm not 100% sure. But I believe it just edits brushes and stuff. And there's just a bunch of settings which take way too long to actually go through, like bending and all that snazzy stuff. And you can edit the size. And there's a lot of just things that you can look into. And last thing on this, I'm going to show you how to add more terrain. So it's pretty simple. So you'll see if this is too small for you, you can add more. So what you would do is here, you're going to set it to clamp. You can do it mirror, but I prefer clamp. And there's this height map and whatever, but what you do is there'll be ones outside of it, and you just click, and it adds more terrain. Well, that's very interesting. But yeah, so, and I should address it. It will add all these here. You're gonna want to, like a folder or something, especially in here, because if you're not doing this in a folder, you're gonna have way too much terrain data just shoved everywhere. But yeah, this is my first tutorial. I don't know, I was just trying stuff out. Hopefully this worked. And you can use this to create maps and worlds, and it's really intuitive and nice. And I hope you like this. So, if you liked, like. If you don't, and subscribe. Peace.